Hey, it's Shana Meyerson with YOGAthletica in Los Angeles, California. Today we're going to work on pressing up into a headstand. We'll start with Shana B, our tripod. Remember that when you're setting up a tripod, it's an equilateral triangle, right? This is going to be our most stable base. Placing your head on the floor, make sure you're on the crown of your head and not on your forehead. The hands should be where you can see all fingers, 90-degree angles, elbows over wrists, and shoulders in line with elbows. To start, just place one knee on your arm, press down into your arm to take the other foot off the floor. So this is our most basic action, is learning how to pull off the floor instead of like jumping off the floor. So in order to come up with control, we have three elements that have to work: the push, the pull, the sustain. The push is what's on the floor, your head and your hands. But in this one, we actually have an extra push element, which is the leg that's on the arm to give us extra leverage. The pull is generally the highest point in your body. In this situation, it's your hips. And the sustenance, what really pulls you in and holds you, is core, 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 core. You always know what I say, no matter what the question, the answer is core. It's a rib cage to pelvis action. So once again, make sure you're on the very crown of your head, your arms at 90 degrees. You sort of press one leg down into your arm and see if you can. Maybe you just come to your tippy toe today. But once you're there, it's really just a function of bending your knee and like you're going to do a little sit-up. It's like a little core engagement. Hooray. Okay. So once you have that, you have the most rudimentary aspect of pressing into a headstand. Now, of course, we got to go a lot higher than that, and we got to have some serious control. So, next exercise, next drill. We start the same way. I use the leverage of this leg to pull up this leg, okay? My stomach, it's almost like I'm doing like a sit-up. And then see if you can, pressing into one leg, and this one I'll press into this, my left leg. See if you can take your other knee to the middle of your chest and bring it back. And the knee that is on the arm should be very close to your armpit. Now I press down into this one for leverage to pull in. Okay, so again, I've got my press, which is the leg, my pull, which is the hip, and then my sustain, which is the core engagement. So you pull in, you pull out. When you do that one, make sure when you go back out, it's your shin that lies up on your triceps, not the back of your leg, your hamstrings, okay? You want to pull in and pull up. Okay. Again, remember we've got our push, which is our hands, our head, and in this scenario, the leg, our pull, which is the hips, and our sustain, which is the core. Now, we make things a little bit harder by taking out the second piece of leverage, the leg that's pressing into our arms. So instead, once we come up, so we'll start with that lever to take us in, but now can you press into your hands and lightly into your head, lifting up from your hips, because remember your legs are connected to your hips, so if your hips are high, your legs are high, and pull your knees to midline and pull them out. Pull them in, pull them out. So I'm just touching my knees in essence to my chest, and at the same time, I'm having that action like if someone punched you in the stomach and you're like, oof, okay? It's that oof action that brings you in and holds you in. Now, people always tell me, oh, I don't have enough core strength, I don't have enough core strength. Usually it's not about whether you have the core strength, but whether you know how to engage it. And that's what you need to learn to do, is engage the core by pulling generally your rib cage to your pelvis, okay? Now, once you've got that one, let's switch to Shirshasana A, our classic headstand. In A, remember the arms are like this, okay? The elbows are about shoulders distance apart, so you can measure this way, and then take your hands together. The fingers should be able to wiggle. I'm not saying you're wiggling your fingers, but you don't want to be squeezing really tightly. The hands should be sort of loose, but fully bound right at the edge. But the thing that people sort of confuse in this pose is that when you're doing Shirshasana A, only the pad of your thumb will touch your head, okay? You're not cupping your head. It's more like this because you want your arm in a karate chop position, which means the hand is vertical. This is a very stable pose so that the position, I should say, so that the pad of the thumb would be the only thing to touch the head. If I cup my head, my hand goes like this. I'm not sure if you can see this, but it rolls to the outer edge of the arm, which isn't going to be nearly as stable as a nice solid line down. So again, only this touches your head. So you can measure, you can grab your elbows, interlace your fingers all the way to the base, but don't squeeze tightly. Get your braids out of the way. Head comes down, make sure you're flat on your head, not on your forehead. And this time, can you walk in, even if your knees bend, see if you can get to your big toes, okay? And then just bend your knees to your chest, okay? So right now, my toes are doing very little. They have no real strength. I'm just bending my knees into my chest. Now, this will help you to get used to having pressure on your head, but also, what does bending my knees to my chest do? Well, it engages my core, right? If I say to you, do a core exercise that any first grader can do, you're going to do some sort of sit-up or crunch, which is in essence closing the distance between thighs and chest, okay? So anytime I bring my thighs really close to my chest, it automatically engages the core. Good news. Okay, so here's the thing about pulling up. Remember, when we're working on presses, there's no momentum. You're not jumping. And by the way, if you want to work on the press, you don't learn to press by jumping. So if you can't get off the floor, you don't get off the floor for a while. That's totally cool, okay? Lightning is not going to fall from the sky and strike you down. But the truth is, if you keep jumping and kicking, jumping and kicking, jumping and kicking, you will never press. So you gotta work the press. Again, 3 elements. Push with the arms, pull with the hips, sustain, pull with your core. Now, the thing is about the hips, if I come way in and my hips are down here, well, those hips can't pull me up, right? In fact, they're doing quite the opposite. They're pulling me down. So I need to get my hips over my shoulders. Oh, one more thing. People tend to forget about their arms. We already mentioned that they're the push, but people tend to set up their arms and be like, okay, whatever, my arms are there. No, your arms aren't just there, and they're going to get heavy into the hands, and if you're flipping backwards, you're probably not using your elbows enough. So make sure that your whole arm, not just your hands, your whole arm all the way to your elbow is pressing strongly into the floor. Your head should be very light on the floor. So now I come in, have my knees in, but hips very high. Here's what we're going to do. Just your toes are on the floor. Lift from your hips. You'll feel your core engage. And see if you can just bend your knees to get off the floor. Now you see there's no force in that action. All I did was bend my knees. Okay? My hips aren't all the way vertical, okay? But they're high enough to give me some sort of pulling action. But most of that work, most of the work is just core. Finding the core and holding it in place, okay? By the way, how do you get your core so able to really knock this out of the ballpark? Well, you do a lot of it. You do a lot of core every day, and then your core will train itself. You won't have to tell it to engage, because it will engage naturally. That's the goal. So again, do not jump into this one. It won't help you to learn it. Work it until it makes sense. The only action is bending your knees. That is all. Okay, so again, I come in, so I'm on my tippy toes, bend my knees to my chest, which already engages my core, press into my elbows, lift my hips, and just bend. I'm going to stay very, very compact here. Okay? Now, once you have that, if you want to get up to a vertical posture, of course the hips do have to come all the way up and the knees are going to have to come from the down position to an upward position. This is a simple pivot of the hips. So once I got as far as that, I've actually got my headstand. Now what I have to do is take my pelvic bowl and pivot, flip it. So you might want to go to a wall for this one. I'll show you on the wall. You absolutely don't need a wall. But if you're scared, I recommend it. So you come up and you want to be about 1/2 a leg's distance from the wall, okay? Because otherwise you're going to knock into the wall and bop off of it. So same thing, I walk in, get to my tippy toes, bend my knees to my chest, then I just bend my knees and I pivot my hips. You see how my knees follow my hips. I'll go back, I'll tap the wall, which is a little further behind me than I thought, a lot further behind me than I thought. Knees to chest, and straighten my legs. Okay, I'm going to show that again, but a little closer to the wall. I don't use the wall very often. In fact, I never use the wall, so I don't always know how far to go. Okay, let's go a little closer to the wall, go all the way to the edge of my mat. So again, tippy toes, bend your knees to your chest, and then bend your knees to take your feet off the floor, pivot your hips up into the air, tap the wall, and then pivot your hips back, knees back to your chest, and straighten your legs to come down. Okay? So this is just a simple, honestly, bending and straightening of your legs. Okay? Once you've got that, of course, you can add in the straight legs on top. See if you can do the same thing. So now we've got a full press. We'll work the pike in a second. So toes, knees to chest, bend knees, pivot your hips, and then when the knees come back to straighten, my body lengthens. I can come back out the same way. Bend, knees to chest, straighten legs, and release. Okay, how'd that go? Once you have that, honestly, the straight leg pike is not that much more intensive. The difference with the straight leg pike is that your legs, because they're extended, have a lot of weight bearing in this direction, okay? So they're gonna pull you down, right? They're very heavy and they're over here. So I need to compensate with something in that direction because my legs are so heavy in this direction. What am I going to compensate with? My butt. Now if you watch my handstand videos, you know I talk about the butt shelf, and you're going to imagine there's a butt shelf behind you. Your butt, in order to compensate for the weight of your legs, instead of going up, needs to go up and over onto this butt shelf. So it's going to sort of look like hips back, legs out, okay? Everything's a teeter-totter when we're talking about balance, right? So can't just have heavy legs hanging out there. Something's got to compensate. So now when I come in, I pull my hips that way to make up for the weight of the leg. So I walk in, and this time, instead of bending my knees, I just press my thighs in and pull my hips back. You see? To get from the pike, my hips are going to have to go forward again as the legs go back. Because if my hips are way back here, and I just pull up my legs, I'm going to flip over backwards. I need to undo that compensation, so as the legs come up, my hips come back forward. You see? And you can go up and down that way. Legs go forward, butt goes back. Legs go up, butt goes forward. Okay? And you do want to be able to lower in control. Hips go back. And how do I lower in control? Feet go forward as far as possible. Okay? The closer my feet land towards my head, two things happen. A, remember, legs to chest engages your core. That's what we're looking for. But B, we have a plane of symmetry that we're trying to balance on, okay? The closer I stay to that plane of symmetry, the easier it is to balance, the less I need to compensate. So, this is what I got for you today. I really hope it works. Again, be patient with this one. At first, your feet might not come off the floor. Bear with it. Eventually, your mind and your core will figure this one out. This is Shana Meyerson with YOGAthletica in Los Angeles, California, wishing you a super awesome day. Don't forget, by the way, to check out my Venmo channel of full-length videos. It will change your practice forever. See you later.